A single mother and her son were beaten, thrown out, and left to survive in the blistering desert. No one cared until a mysterious millionaire pulled over. But this isn't just a story about kindness. It's a journey that unmasked a hidden villain and unearthed a truth buried for decades. And the ending left the entire courtroom in tears. The midday sun in New Mexico can scorch even the last flicker of hope. Naomi Carter dragged her bare feet across the burning sand, clutching her 9-year-old son Liam, who was gasping in her arms. Her shirt was torn to shreds, blood streaked down from her forehead, mixing with the bitter sting of sweat. Behind her, the iron gate slammed shut with a heavy clang. Her in-laws, the Carter family, had just thrown her out of their mansion like a mangy dog. No just cause. No flicker of mercy, only hatred and vicious lies. You poisoned Derek to steal everything, Naomi. I won't let you get away with this. Naomi had no more tears left. Her husband, Derek, had died 2 weeks earlier, collapsed during dinner. She was the only one there. Police called it a heart issue, but Derek's younger brother, Percy, wasted no time spreading a different story. She killed him for the money. No one in the family stood up for her, not one. All Naomi had left was Liam, and now her boy was burning up in her arms. "Hang on, baby. We're almost to the road," Naomi whispered, her voice shaking. Wind kicked up sand into her face. She collapsed again. Third time. A distant truck horn pierced the silence. She forced herself up, stumbling into the middle of the road. A rusty gray pickup truck was barreling toward them. Naomi raised her arms and screamed, "Stop! Please! My son!" Tires screeched to a halt just a few feet away. The truck door creaked open. Out stepped a man, salt and pepper hair, rough stubble, eyes cold as steel, worn-out jeans, dusty boots. But in his hand, he held a bottle of water, the one thing she craved more than life itself. He looked at her, said nothing. Naomi screamed, "My son! He's burning up! Please!" He handed her the bottle without a word, then glanced at Liam. "How old is he?" "9, she croaked, barely audible. He nodded. "Get him in the truck. I know a place nearby with medicine." Naomi didn't ask his name. She only knew this. If she didn't get in that truck, Liam wouldn't make it. As the engine roared and the truck pulled away from the desert, Naomi looked back over her shoulder. What she didn't know was this. The man who had just saved her life was Victor Hale, a reclusive millionaire who had vanished from the public eye over 8 years ago. And somehow, his past was entangled with her husband's death, in ways Naomi had never even imagined. The truck rumbled across dusty red dirt roads, winding through barren hills. Naomi sat in the back, clutching Liam tightly to her chest, her heart pounding, not just from fear, but from not knowing where they were going or who this man really was. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice raw like sandpaper. "Victor." Just one word. No last name. No eye contact. He kept his gaze fixed on the road, his weathered hands gripping the wheel, knuckles white. Naomi felt something was off. This man was too calm, too quiet, not like someone who had just rescued strangers in the middle of a desert. No pity, no small talk, just silence and a presence that made her shiver. Liam whimpered, his face flushed red. Victor spoke, "There's medicine in the cabinet behind the seat, acetaminophen, liquid form." Naomi fumbled to find it, her hands trembling as she poured the syrup into the cap and helped Liam sip it slowly. "Why did you help me?" she asked again. After a few seconds, Victor replied, "Because I know what it feels like to stand in a place where no one gives a damn about you." Naomi didn't ask anything else. She just held her son's hand tighter, her eyes burning. For a brief moment, she sensed he wasn't talking to her. He was talking to himself. An hour later, the truck stopped in front of a large wooden house tucked deep in a valley. It was surrounded by a tall iron fence, overgrown with mistletoe vines. No nameplate, no signal bars. Naomi stepped out and looked around. Everything was eerily quiet. "Is it safe here?" she whispered. Victor didn't answer. He opened the door and led them inside. The air was cool, the interior unsettlingly tidy. Every object was in its place, not a speck of dust anywhere. He pointed to a small room on the left. "You and your son sleep there. Bathroom's next door. You hungry?" Naomi shook her head. "I just need to know what's really going on." For the first time, Victor looked her in the eye. His silver-gray gaze flashed like a blade just unsheathed. "There are things, if you learn them too soon, you won't make it out." Naomi froze. But before she could speak, Liam stirred in his sleep, mumbling in a panic, "Mom, don't let them take me. Don't." "Uncle Percy." The name hit like a lightning bolt in the stillness. Naomi turned sharply. Victor hadn't moved, but his eyes were closed. And in that moment, Naomi felt it. He knew. He knew who Percy was. He knew what had happened. Maybe he even knew truths she had never been told. The morning in the valley was eerily calm. Sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a warm, golden glow across the old wooden window frame. Naomi woke to a sound she hadn't heard in days. Liam's steady breathing, peaceful for the first time after so many nights of nightmares. He was still weak, but the fever had broken. His pale face filled Naomi with both relief and a quiet ache in her chest. She pulled the blanket up over him and quietly slipped out of the room, intending to find a glass of water. The house was completely still. Victor wasn't in the kitchen. On the table lay a single sheet of paper, handwritten in neat block letters. "Working at the West Shed. Help yourself to whatever you need." Naomi hesitated. It was the first time she had been in an unfamiliar place without feeling danger lurking around every corner. But that didn't mean she felt safe either. She poured a glass of water, took a few small sips, and wandered through the house. Her eyes landed on a slightly ajar office door. Something instinctive nudged her forward. Victor's office was simple, but organized with a near-military precision. On the desk sat a thick black leather folder. Beside it, a laptop was open. An Excel spreadsheet scrolled endlessly, filled with numbers, assets, investments, anonymous funds. She glanced around about to leave when she noticed a photo face down on the desk. She hesitated, then turned it over. 3 people in the picture. Victor, looking about 10 years younger, stood next to a woman with striking red hair and a girl around 7 years old. Naomi didn't have time to wonder who they were before something else caught her eye. Something far more disturbing. On the shelf behind the desk was a medical file. The name on it froze her in place. Derek Carter. Her husband. The file was titled Forensic Analysis, Toxins and Medication. A doctor's signature marked the final page, and below it in red ink, a handwritten note. Sample submitted by VH Special Anonymous Authorization. Naomi stepped back, heart pounding. VH. Victor Hale. Why did Victor have Derek's medical file? And why was he listed as the one who submitted the samples for testing? She closed the file, carefully put everything back, and returned to her room, her mind spinning. Victor wasn't a coincidence. He knew Derek. He might have been investigating her husband's death before she ever knew she'd be accused. Naomi looked at Liam, still sleeping, and felt a rising fear and a bigger question. Had they truly been rescued? Or were they just pawns in a game set in motion long before they knew they were playing? Victor returned in the late afternoon, his dark shirt damp with sweat and dust clinging to the cuffs. He placed a paper bag on the kitchen table. Roast chicken. With radish salad. The boy needs vegetables. Naomi didn't answer. She stood in the doorway, her eyes slicing through him like a blade waiting to be sharpened. We need to talk. Victor looked up, his gaze sharp as steel, meeting hers for just a second, then softened. He pulled out a chair and motioned for her to sit. It's about my husband, Naomi began. Derek. There was a brief silence. Victor leaned forward, resting his arms on the table, and gave a small nod. I knew you'd find it. Naomi clenched her fingers. Why do you have his medical records? And why is your name listed as the one who submitted the samples? Victor leaned back in his chair and let out a slow breath. Because I was the first person to suspect that his death wasn't as straightforward as the police report claimed. Naomi froze. Victor continued, I met Derek once. Just once, over a year ago, at a financial conference in Phoenix. He was smart, careful, but there was something unsettled in his eyes. He never told me anything. Naomi's voice broke. Because he was scared, Victor said quietly, not for himself, but for you and your son. Naomi's heart clenched. Victor stood and walked slowly to a wooden cabinet, pulling out another folder. He handed it to her. These are copies of emails Derek sent to an anonymous address, mine. He wrote about pressure from his family. About Percy, his half-brother, who demanded part of the inheritance and threatened to make the whole family disappear like they never existed. Derek suspected he was being poisoned, but he had no proof. Naomi opened the file. The final message made her hands tremble. If I die suddenly, please protect Naomi and Liam. Don't trust anyone in my family, especially Percy. She looked up at Victor, her voice shaking. Why are you helping us? No one does this, just out of kindness. Victor was silent for a long moment, then replied, Because I lost a daughter once. She was 7. Her name was Lily, and she lay unconscious in her mother's arms just like Liam, and I didn't get there in time. There was a visible crack in his expression, not the face of a cold millionaire, but of a shattered father. Naomi took a step back. Everything swirled in her mind. Guilt, gratitude, suspicion, and fear. She didn't know yet if Victor was a savior or just a man paying for the past. She only knew one thing. From this moment on, there was no turning back. Naomi woke earlier than usual. Liam was still asleep, his cheeks rosy again. Every now and then, he furrowed his brows as if he were dreaming. She gently pulled the blanket over him, kissed his forehead, and stepped outside with a clear goal in mind. She wouldn't let Derek die in vain. That morning, she went to the town library, the only place that still kept legal documents and public records from before everything went digital. Naomi dug through the forensic reports, death certificate, and the list of doctors who treated Derek. She discovered 2 different reports, one submitted to the police and another internal hospital document, sealed for unknown reasons. Her instincts screamed. Someone had interfered. When she returned to the ranch, Victor was watering the plants. She told him what she'd found, and for the first time saw a tense frown crease his face. That internal file won't be easy to get. You'd need someone on the inside, he said. Or money, Naomi replied, her voice cool. Victor looked at her, silent for a moment, then nodded. I have a few old contacts at that hospital. I'll make some calls. Less than an hour later, Naomi received a message from an old friend, a former colleague from the Children's Care Center, with a single link attached. You need to see this. Naomi clicked on it. It was an article from the local news site. The bold headline, Naomi Carter, kidnaps son to run away with ex-lover? She was stunned. The article accused her of taking her son out of state without permission while under investigation for will fraud and emotional abuse of a minor. A photo of her and Liam was cropped next to a blurry image of Victor, making everything seem even more sinister. Worse still, in the comment section, dozens of people shared it with vicious remarks. She's just a gold digger. Thought she was the victim, but it's all a scam. Naomi felt weak. Before she could collect herself, another message came through, this time from an anonymous reporter. It included a photo of Victor from 10 years ago, with an italicized headline from an old investigative article, Businessman Victor Hale once suspected in mysterious disappearance of 7-year-old girl, his mistress's daughter? Naomi was stunned. Every piece of the puzzle spun in her mind. Victor had once mentioned his daughter was named Lily, lost in an accident. But according to the article, someone had claimed the accident was never properly investigated and that Victor had paid to silence witnesses. She stood in the eye of a storm of doubt, fake news, and piling secrets. Victor walked in carrying a cup of tea. You're not feeling well? Naomi looked up, her eyes filled with torment. Who are you really, Victor? And why do I feel like I'm being dragged into something darker than my husband's death? Victor stayed silent for a moment after Naomi placed the article in front of him. His gaze was not frantic, but there was a deep, weary exhaustion in his eyes. Do you believe them? He asked, his voice rough. Naomi crossed her arms, avoiding his gaze. I don't know anymore. All I know is that everything is getting worse. Victor nodded slightly, then turned toward the desk. He pulled an old envelope from the drawer and threw it down on the table. This is the forensic certificate from the accident. The girl was trapped in the burned-out car with her mother. I provided the DNA and cleared up all the allegations back then. But the ones who want to bring me down don't care about the truth. They only care about blood. Naomi took the paper. All the details matched. The date, the time, the identity. But inside her, a wave of doubt still lingered. Victor looked at her, for the first time showing a glimmer of earnestness in his eyes. If you need me to prove my innocence, I will. But don't forget, I'm not the only one with secrets. Those words stayed with Naomi throughout the afternoon as she rummaged through the old belongings she had brought from her late husband's house. In a dusty plastic box, she found a black external hard drive, something she thought had been lost after Derek's funeral. She connected it to the computer. The screen filled with hundreds of disorganized folders. Among the countless file names, one folder stood out. Do not open unless something bad happens. Her heart pounded in her chest. Inside, there was only one audio file, confession.mp3. She pressed play. I know you'll never forgive me for not saying this sooner, but Naomi, if you're listening to this, then I might not be around anymore. It was Percy. He put something in my drink. He said it straight to my face. The CEO chair is mine by any means. I tried to check, but all the test results were tampered with. I don't trust anyone anymore. Naomi froze. That was Derek's voice. Shaky, weak, but full of determination. In the background, there was a faint sound like someone walking in, and a whisper. Don't forget, Naomi and Liam are a burden. If you don't let go, I'll take care of it. She turned to look at Liam, sitting on the floor playing with his wooden blocks, thinking he still didn't understand anything. But Liam suddenly looked up. He pointed at the laptop speaker. That voice is Uncle Percy's, Liam whispered, his lips trembling. Naomi shuddered. Are you sure? Liam nodded. That day at the mansion, Uncle Percy gave me medicine. He said it was vitamin candy, but after that, my stomach hurt, then everything went dark. Naomi felt her blood run cold. It wasn't just Derek, but Liam too was a victim. And Percy, her late husband's brother, might be hiding more than just a poisoning crime. Naomi knew she no longer had a choice. Derek's voice in the recording, Liam's terrified look when he realized vitamin candy from Uncle Percy, all of it was a reminder that if she stayed silent, there would be more children like Liam, forced to live in fear. She backed up the recording onto 3 different USB drives and hid them in 3 separate places. Then she texted an old friend who had worked at the newsroom, the one who had introduced her to Rachel Nguyen, a young investigative reporter known for exposing money laundering and financial manipulation. Rachel arrived that same afternoon, a petite woman with glasses, neatly tied hair, and a voice sharp as a razor. Naomi handed over the entire file, the recording, and Derek's bank account used before his death. This isn't just about murder, Rachel muttered. I think Percy is using his company as a front for money laundering and bribing law enforcement. For the next 3 days, Rachel barely left her laptop. She traced hidden transactions, accounts set up under the names of the deceased, and then discovered a sum of hundreds of thousands of dollars coded under medical, but the recipient was a man once accused of hiring a hitman in New Mexico. Naomi clenched her fists as she read the preliminary report. At the top was a short line, March 4th, Naomi Carter. Risk level, red. Suggested action, eliminate within 60 days. She was silent. Percy not only wanted to strip her of custody, he had once planned to kill her. That evening, Rachel went to her car to head back to the hotel. Naomi watched her leave, worried. Be careful, she said. Rachel smiled, raising the hard drive. Don't worry, everything's backed up to the cloud. 10 minutes later, Naomi's phone rang. A frantic voice came through the line. It's Rachel. The car lost its brakes, crashed into a light pole. Naomi dropped the phone, her head spun. There was no such thing as an accidental crash when the truth was about to be revealed. The next morning, she stood in court, wearing an old gray dress. Rachel was still unconscious. Her lawyer, who had been bought off by Percy, backed out at the last minute. Naomi had to face this alone. As she stepped up to the witness stand and saw Percy sitting across from her, his cold, unfeeling gaze, she no longer felt afraid. I don't have a team of lawyers. I don't have the money to buy justice, she began, her voice steady. But I have this, my husband's final recording and my son's words, the 2 victims that Percy Carter wanted to erase from this world. The courtroom buzzed, but Naomi knew the real storm was just beginning. Less than 48 hours after the first trial, Percy Carter struck back with a speed that left Naomi stunned. A petition over 50 pages long was submitted to the judge, demanding Naomi undergo mandatory psychiatric evaluation. In the file, Percy presented a series of evidence that seemed bizarre. A copy of the prescription for antidepressants Naomi had taken after giving birth, emails she'd sent to Derek's lawyer with a panicked tone, and a short video clip taken from a security camera, showing Naomi standing outside in the middle of the night, crying in a panic. Percy's lawyer described Naomi as an unstable single mother with delusional tendencies and extreme paranoia. She claims a successful businessman planned to have her assassinated in order to gain custody of her child, the lawyer sneered during the argument. I don't think this is a legal issue. It's a medical one. Naomi couldn't believe her ears. She had just presented evidence. Rachel had nearly died in an accident that was likely caused by tampered brakes, and now she was being portrayed as the one with a mental issue. Under pressure from the media and the heavy file from Percy's side, the judge issued a temporary ruling. Naomi was to be temporarily separated from Liam until a psychiatric evaluation was completed. Naomi leaped up from her chair. "No, Liam needs me. Percy. He's the real threat." "Calm down, Miss Carter," the judge interrupted. "This decision is not a punishment, but to protect the child." When Liam was led away by two people from the Child Protective Agency, his eyes were confused, his lips pressed tightly together. Naomi screamed, her voice breaking. "Don't be scared. I'll find you. I promise." That night, Naomi curled up on the bed in the Psychiatric Evaluation Center, her tears soaking the pillow. Outside, the rain began to fall. Around 3 a.m., there was a light knock on the door. Naomi opened her eyes. The door to the room cracked open. A tiny figure, soaked and trembling. It was Liam. He rushed into her arms, clinging to her like he never wanted to let go. "Liam? How did you get out of there?" she gasped. "I ran away. I couldn't stand Uncle Percy," he sobbed. Then, his voice shaking, he whispered, "Mom, I remember now. That day in the room, I saw Uncle Percy put something in Dad's drink, and in mine too." Naomi pulled him tightly into her embrace, her hands gripping him. Now, it wasn't just a guess or a recording. The direct account from the child and the memories that had just resurfaced would change everything. The courtroom was packed. The media followed every move of Naomi Carter, the single mother about to face off against an entire financial empire. But this time, she wasn't alone. Victor Hale entered amid the flashing lights. Despite being over 60, he exuded the calm of someone seasoned and with more than enough power. The reporters buzzed. Who is he? Is he the one who saved her and her son in the desert? Naomi sat still, holding Liam's hand tightly. But when Victor approached the witness stand and introduced himself, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. "I am Victor Hale, a reclusive millionaire and the biological father of Naomi Carter." The room erupted. The judge slammed the gavel for order, but everyone's gaze remained fixed on Victor. He looked at Naomi for a long moment, then continued, "I am here because my daughter has been falsely accused and my grandson, Liam, is being wrongfully threatened with losing custody. I cannot stand by any longer." Percy's lawyer attempted to interrupt, but Victor raised a USB drive. "This is the recording of Derek Carter, the eldest son of the Carter family, confessing that he suspected he was poisoned by his own brother, Percy Carter." The recording played. Derek's voice was weak but clear. "I think Percy put something in my drink. You see that? I've been out of control for months. If I die, look for Percy." The air in the room froze. "I have this recording because Derek came to me. He knew I was Naomi's father. He wanted to atone for his mistakes and bring the truth to light, that Percy killed him to take control of the company." Victor paused for a moment, then looked directly at Percy, whose face was now pale, though he still tried to maintain his composure. Percy didn't just want to eliminate Derek. He also wanted to take Liam, to use the child as a media shield, to prove that the Carter bloodline continues, and to cover up the truth of what he's done. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Naomi was crying now. She didn't have to scream it out anymore, because her father had spoken for her. Liam looked at Victor, the man he still called kind uncle, with admiration in his eyes. He didn't fully understand everything going on, but he knew one thing. Today, he and his mother were being protected. The courtroom fell silent. Percy Carter was handcuffed. His face was as cold as paper, but the corner of his mouth still twitched, trying to maintain his last semblance of arrogance. Yet, his eyes couldn't hide the fear, not because of the verdict, but because he knew it was over. The verdict was read with the sound of the judge's gavel. Mr. Percy Carter is convicted under 18 U.S.C. 1343 for financial fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. Sentence, life imprisonment without parole. A slight murmur filled the room, then silence once more. But then, Naomi unexpectedly stood up. She requested to speak. "Your Honor, I know Percy has committed horrific crimes. He has destroyed my family, taken away the peace of so many people. But, Naomi looked at Liam, sitting in the back row, the young boy clutching Victor as though seeking a foundation. "My son has witnessed too much pain. He doesn't need a death row inmate to remember. He needs a justice system with humanity." She took a deep breath, tears welling up but not falling. I asked the court not to impose the death penalty on Percy Carter. Let the law punish him, but with the mercy I once wished for in my darkest days. The judge was silent. Victor bowed his head, his hand gripping Naomi's, trembling. A long moment passed, as if time had stopped. Then the judge nodded. Request acknowledged. In the hallway, reporters scrambled to report as if in chaos, but inside no one noticed, because a family had just been quietly and profoundly healed. Victor pulled Naomi into his embrace. The elderly father held his daughter as though he were apologizing for all the years he had been absent. Naomi cried out, hugging him back, the first time she let her heart be as vulnerable as a child's. Liam stood there, bewildered, then joined them in their embrace. "Can I call you Grandpa?" he asked softly. Victor laughed, then cried, "You are everything to me." A few weeks later, the court officially recognized Liam as the sole legal heir of Derek Carter, to be protected under Naomi's guardianship, the mother who had stood firm through every storm. The media dubbed it the shocking power shift in the business world, but to Naomi, it was just a journey home, back to the truth, back to love, and back to herself. That afternoon, in Victor's ranch, 3 generations sat together under the porch. Liam played with the newly adopted dog, Naomi sipped tea with her father, and the desert breeze swept across the vast fields. No one spoke, but they all understood. Justice isn't just punishment. Justice sometimes is an embrace after years of being lost.